Hello, people. So today I'm wondering, should I buy Tesla stock? And for me, the answer is yes, and I have, and I will continue to. And so take all this with a grain of salt. Certainly, their balance sheet is not the best. They continue to lose money, and there's no dividend in sight. So I assume that even if we go towards 2025, if you're buying it for basically the hope of getting a dividend, I think that hope would be misplaced. After 2025, who knows? I'm not really looking that far into the future, especially in such pivotal stocks and things like that. So what Tesla has going for it is Autopilot. Now, there are several companies on the stock market right now for which Autopilot is basically their only product. There's Waymo, there's Cruise Automation, there's another one that I forget, and they have multi-billion market caps based solely on the fact that they can drive autonomously. And they have not proven that they're better than Tesla at doing that. They have just proven that they can do it in limited applications, in limited areas, with limited intervention at limited times, in a limited way. Anyway, so there's Autopilot, which has been available on Tesla cars for almost 5 years now. And I don't really know too many people that are unhappy with it, and it's been proven that it actually saves lives. So if you drive a Tesla, you're 75% less likely to get into an accident. And if you do get into an accident, you're another 75% less likely to die. So Autopilot has probably saved tens, maybe hundreds of people at this point. So there's one thing that Tesla has going for it, which would probably justify their current market cap by itself. Then they produce solar panels. There used to be a company called Solar City that they have bought, and they're currently the third biggest manufacturer for solar panels in the US. They used to be number one, but they haven't been growing as much as they should have. It seems like they're kind of sort of waiting for the solar roof to be widely available, and I don't really know whether or not that's the best idea. But they still do produce a lot of solar panels. They sell a lot of them. It doesn't really make a dent in their total revenue because the solar panel business is just such a minor part that it's not really listed separately, and I don't think that it's a strong selling point of Tesla as a company. But I figure I'd list it here because it's obviously an expanding business. It's obviously an important part of their business, and it's probably going to save them a lot of money if they put basically square miles of solar panels on their gigafactories. So then we have batteries, and they have the biggest commercial battery, or they did anyway, in South Australia, which has replaced 3 natural gas electric plants. So the savings for that is obviously hundreds of millions of dollars for the utility companies, because they got to shut down 3 different gas power plants that they weren't even counting on shutting down. So they built the battery basically to have a cheaper method of satisfying peak demand in the power grid, and they were going to just leave the gas power plants running if they're needed. But it turns out that the battery is much better at it than they had thought. So battery is also a growing business and something that is going to be huge in the future. And all these peaker plants are sooner or later going to be replaced by batteries. Now, right now, Tesla is kind of battery constrained, which means they produce about as many cars as they have batteries for. Which also means that if they were producing more batteries, they could produce more cars, or if they produced more batteries, they could produce like power walls and grid storage and all that. Basically, most of their revenue is closely tied to the batteries that they produce, and closely tied to the batteries that Panasonic produces as well. So that's kind of a minor point that hurts them in a way, but they're also the biggest producer of batteries, or lithium-ion batteries anyway, in the world. So that's a growing business. Even if they didn't produce another car ever, the battery business would probably provide enough revenue to sustain the company for decades into the future. Then finally we get to the car part. So obviously Model S, Model X, Model 3, huge sellers. The Model S and X, they can produce enough of. The Model 3, they're constrained by the batteries, and they could produce more if they had more batteries, and the demand is there. It's just that they can't. They need to expand their battery production, which they're working on. But for that reason, Model 3 is supply constrained. Model S and X can be produced in enough numbers to satisfy demand, but demand is kind of slow right now. It's probably going to pick up soon, but probably wouldn't be counting on like 20% growth every year. For the Model 3, I would probably count on more than 20% growth every year. So then you need to hit the like button. And Model Y. Again, Model Y is going to have the same batteries as the Model 3. So Elon Musk has said that they could produce the Model Y right now, but since they don't have any additional batteries, they would basically have to decide, do we produce a Model 3 or a Model Y? And so right now it doesn't really make sense to release the Model Y, which takes demand away from the Model 3, when the bottom line is the same. So they would still have 7,000 Model 3s and Model Ys produced every week, and right now it would just be Model 3s. So there's basically no reason to introduce the Model Y right now, but it has a way bigger potential market than the Model 3. So as soon as more battery capacity is there, the Model Y is going to be introduced, and it's probably going to take off. And then we have the Roadster, which obviously is not going to be produced in huge numbers. It's going to be a $200,000 car before tax. So even just selling a few hundred of them would probably be enough to significantly increase both revenue and profit. I would assume that the profit margin is quite big on that. Obviously a car that can compete with the best of the Lamborghinis and Ferraris and whatever. So I would assume the demand for that is there, especially at a fraction of a price of a Lamborghini that has the same stats. So obviously not going to make a huge difference in revenue, might make a huge difference in profit, but it's kind of been like muted for the past few months because they have so much other stuff going on that they don't really want to advertise the Roadster right now. Then there's the Tesla Semi, which again, not going to be huge for revenue, but might be huge for profit, because the selling price is obviously way higher. And if the cost of the batteries comes down significantly, the cost of the Semi comes down significantly, and the profit margin can increase a lot, because they have said that the cost of fuel is basically saves the cost of a Tesla Semi over its lifespan. So basically, if you're spending, let's say, $10,000 in fuel every year, then you're going to pay for the cost of the Semi just from the savings of the fuel in 15 years. So there's that. Obviously also going to be a huge driver for reducing CO2 emissions, because semis drive a lot, like basically 24 hours a day. So you can put hundreds of thousands of miles on a Semi. You can't really, or no one really does that with a car right now. And then you have the pickup, which in America is a huge business. In the rest of the world, it's not. It's really not. But even just in America, which is a huge car market, so eventually they're going to be competing with Ford, which basically doesn't have a decent passenger car out right now. So eventually Tesla is going to have a vehicle in every single market segment. There's basically one other car maker, maybe two that I know of. One other car maker that has a vehicle in all segments, and that's Mercedes. Everyone else either doesn't have a sports car or a Semi or even a pickup. Mercedes doesn't have a pickup, I don't think. Anyway, so Tesla is going to be present in every single segment of vehicles that's being sold right now. Their Autopilot business alone should be worth basically what the whole company is worth at the stock exchange right now. And then you have the side businesses of batteries and solar. So that's why I'm buying Tesla, and I expect the company to be a huge growth company for the next basically decade. And guess we'll see what happens after that.